Well, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see a nearly full Zendo here this morning and a nearly full iPad screen to my right here. It's wonderful. Hello out there as well. All of us practicing together. All of us practicing together. That's what Sangha really is, isn't it? So what are you practicing with in your life right now? What are you practicing with? When I came here this morning, Bokushu Sensei was trying to fill all the service positions, and I admitted that I had never been a Doan before. And he said, well, why don't you be Doan? And so, of course, after all these years of practice, clammy skin, the nervousness, what if I do it wrong? All of those things. And of course, Bokushu coming over and gently correcting, or not so gently, depending on his. So what are you practicing with? We chanted the Heart Sutra this morning, and we went through the sick list. And so I know there are people in my circle of family and friends who are quite ill now. And that's what they are practicing with and what I'm practicing with as well. I know in our world, in the United States at least, where some of us are practicing with this kind of background level of anxiety about what's going to happen in this country, with the abuse of power that is going on, people being put in detention, people who are lawfully in the United States just being rounded up and put into detention, children being zip-tied. So there's this background level of anxiety that I think many of us are practicing with. And then yesterday, I was practicing with a bit of joy. I was at a small, several hundred people, not too small, group of people at a No Kings march out in South Orange and Maplewood, New Jersey, near where I live. And it was a festive occasion and a joyful occasion to see that there are so many people in this country. And you've all seen the pictures of New York City and Washington, D.C. and Boston and Atlanta. There are so many people in this country who are angry and upset and concerned about what's going on. And they're taking time out of their schedules to stand up, even if they're afraid. And I know that some of the people that I talked to about the little rally out in Maplewood asked, are we going to be safe? Is it safe? Fortunately, it was. So practice is always a relevant question for all of us. And for the next 20 minutes or so, we'll be doing some Dharma practice, Dharma study practice. I would like to talk a little bit about the first part of Dogen's Genjōkōan. We did a workshop 2 weeks ago, which some of you may have attended. So if so, please bear with me. I'll try not to say exactly the same thing I said before. But it's a rich text, not necessarily the easiest text to follow. Dogen wrote it to a lay student of his very early in his teaching career. And it's, in a way, a summation of all of his teachings in a very pithy, sometimes inscrutable few hundred words. So we'll talk about Genjōkōan today, and I hope it's helpful to those of you who are interested in Dogen but struggle with him as I sometimes do. So first, the title, the meaning of Genjōkōan, which I got from Okamura Roshi's book, Realizing Genjōkōan. And it's traditional in these talks to translate the titles, so I'm just following the tradition here. Gen in Japanese, the kanji for gen means to appear or to show up or to be in the present moment. We're always trying to be present in this moment and not live up in our heads somewhere, but really to be present. So gen means to be in the present moment. And jo means to become or to complete or to accomplish. So the translation that's often given for genjo is to manifest, to actualize. Reality as it is. The immediate presencing of all things in their suchness as they actually are, untouched by human conscious strivings. Right now, genjo. Many of us know the word koan. Some of us may be doing koan study. This is actually not the same word. The word ko is the same. In Japanese, the kanji means public, or a public official who was supposed to treat everyone in society equally. So it has the connotation of equalizing inequality. Whoever comes before that official gets treated in exactly the same way. An, in the usual rendering of koan, usually means a desk, a place to read and write. So a koan, that's one of the koans that has been handed down to us in the koan literature, is usually translated a public document because it was written at a desk by a public official and it's been handed down. But Dogen uses a different kanji for an. And the kanji he uses in ancient Japanese society referred to keeping one's lot, keeping one's place or position. Dogen had this concept of a Dharma position. Because in ancient Japanese society, each person had different responsibilities according to their occupation. And so, ko is equalizing inequality. An is the full diversity of all of the different roles and places that we fill in the world. Our lives occur at the intersection between equality and difference, between the oneness of all things on one hand, and the particularity and uniqueness of all things on the other. So Okamura Roshi says, in my understanding, this teaching of individuality and universality is the essence of the title Genjōkōan. Genjo is nothing other than koan, and koan is nothing other than genjo. Genjo means reality actually and presently taking place, and koan means absolute truth that embraces relative truth, or a question that true reality asks of us. So my translation of Genjōkōan is fully expressing true reality through our everyday life. What are you practicing with in your life right now? It's a question we can ask ourselves at any moment. So the first 4 lines, we'll start with the first 4 lines of Genjōkōan. And I'll just read the first 2. When all dharmas are Buddha Dharma, there are delusion, realization, practice, birth and death, Buddhas and sentient beings. When the myriad dharmas are without a self, there is no delusion, no realization, no Buddha, no sentient being, no birth or death. So these first 2 lines are depictions or expressions of reality from 2 very different points of view. The first line is, when all dharmas are Buddha Dharma, there are delusion, realization, practice, birth and death, Buddhas and sentient beings. And the words that Dogen actually used in Japanese for Buddha Dharma actually mean to study the Buddha's teachings. So when we study the Buddha's teachings, we begin to understand our life through a particular lens. And there are all of these distinctions. We learn about delusion and enlightenment. What's that? What's delusion? What's enlightenment? We learn about Buddhas and sentient beings. And the Buddha said, all beings without exception have Buddha nature. What does that mean? What was the Buddha trying to say? So as we study the teachings, we begin to see the arising and falling of all things. We begin to see impermanence. We learn about karma, the law of cause and effect, from the point of view of our own individual lives. So we notice that when we're reacting unskillfully, for example, in our life, when we're coming from a place of delusion, suffering results. So we begin to understand something about delusion through this practice. We begin to understand something about delusion. And of course, the suffering that results and the suffering that we experience in our own lives is the first noble truth. There is no life without suffering. We could call it unsatisfactoriness. Sometimes suffering is a little bit too strong a word, unsatisfactoriness. Do you ever feel unsatisfactoriness in your life? That you're not good enough, that things aren't as you would like them to be? That you would like things to be some other way than the way that they are? It's the first noble truth. Noble because it's fundamental to our human existence. So somehow as we sit and we study and we practice, Bodhi mind is awakened. We aspire to enlightenment. We have a taste, we have an understanding of our own deluded mind, and we aspire to enlightenment. And Dogen is saying the Buddha Dharma holds all of these things, including delusion, including enlightenment or realization, including Buddhas and sentient beings, life and death. And as a result, we have to do something, we have to practice. And so this opening that we have, where we begin to see delusion and begin to aspire to enlightenment, motivates us to practice, to come to our cushion and to practice in our everyday lives. So that's the first line. Now the first line says all dharmas, and the second says myriad dharmas. The second line is when the myriad dharmas are without a self, there is no delusion, no realization, no Buddha, no sentient being, no birth and death. So even though the first line says all dharmas and the second line says myriad dharmas, both lines are about the same thing. Both lines are about all dharmas. He just uses different words. And the second line is saying that all dharmas are without an enduring self. Everything that we experience, everything happening at all points in time and space, is the result of causes and conditions too vast for us to ever comprehend. And so in the second line, Dogen sweeps away all of the distinctions, all of those distinctions that we learned when we started to study the teachings. And he shows us oneness. And so in this non-dual reality, there are no fixed entities. There is no fixed state called delusion. There's no fixed state called enlightenment. Everything in absolute reality is in a dynamic relationship with everything else. So this is the teaching of the Heart Sutra. We chanted it this morning. In emptiness, there is no form, no sensation, conception, discrimination, awareness. And I've always found the Heart Sutra so liberating, because it allows us to let go of all of the dichotomies in our minds. All of our attachments in our minds, we just let them go. In emptiness, there is no form, no sensation, conception, discrimination, no awareness, no delusion, no realization, no Buddha, no sentient beings, no mu. Our attachment of self to self, we let it go. We begin to let it go. It begins to lose its grip on us. We even let go of our understanding of the teachings. The teachings are also concepts. They're creations of our minds. And reality cannot be captured by our discriminating mind. So the first line, the first position is the relative position. Everything, every person, every situation is unique and independent in its own particularity. The second position is the absolute position. Everything, every person, every situation is without an enduring self. Everything is a part of a vast, interconnected whole. Yasutani Roshi says that these are both true reality, and we should investigate them thoroughly. And they are both incomplete realizations. So then we come to Dogen's third line. The Buddha way, in essence, is leaping clear of abundance and lack. Thus, there are birth and death, delusion and realization, sentient beings and Buddhas. Yet in attachment, blossoms fall, and in aversion, weeds spread. So there's a shift here. The parallel construction of these sentences might cause us to think that Dogen is talking about the same thing in the third sentence. But in the third sentence, he's no longer talking about Buddha Dharma. He shifts and says the Buddha way. This is the way of practice, the way of our lives. Is leaping clear of abundance and lack. What is this abundance and lack? So he's referring back to the first two sentences. Abundance is the relative position when all dharmas are Buddha Dharma, the world of distinctions. Lack is when all things are without self, the world of emptiness. So the Buddha way has all of these things. There are birth and death, and delusion and realization, sentient beings and Buddhas. But something's changed. Something's changed. In the Buddha way, we come back to the concrete particulars of our life, to things arising and perishing, just as our thoughts do on the cushion. To moments of delusion. I'm sure you have those. I do. To moments of realization. I have those too. We come back to all of these things without being hindered by them. We leap clear of the dichotomy of relative and absolute. When conflict arises in our life, we leap clear of I'm right and you're wrong, to look at the dynamic interplay of relationship. What did I do to contribute to this conflict? It may be difficult, but we endeavor to respond skillfully in the midst of our lives. Norman Fisher, in his commentary, one of his commentaries says, going beyond the conceptual framework of Buddha Dharma and the conceptual framework of not self, we just live. We live beyond our conceptual frameworks. We have the same distinctions we have had before, but we aren't bound by them anymore. They aren't a problem. So up until this point, it's a theoretical explanation. It's dead words. In the last line of this section, Dogen brings up the living word. Yet, in attachment, blossoms fall, and in aversion, weeds spread. This is the reality of our life, the reality of all human life. We love something or someone, and it's impermanent. We dislike something, and it arises. We behave like jerks to people we love, and we suffer. But Dogen says, even when we're suffering, we're leaping clear of abundance and lack. It's a really beautiful teaching. Dogen is telling us to live our lives fully. When you're deluded, be fully present with your delusion. See your grasping and practice with it. Feel your sadness and practice with it. From the point of view of awakening, of enlightenment, there is no difference between delusion and enlightenment. We awaken to our delusion. We awaken to our Buddha nature. Norman Fisher says we don't have to be something different from our own silly, stupid ridiculousness to be Buddhas. I love that line. We don't have to become some new, improved, better version of ourselves. We just have to practice wholeheartedly. We'll go on a little further in the next couple of lines. So the first two lines of the next section. To carry the self forward and illuminate myriad dharmas is delusion. That myriad dharmas come forth and illuminate the self is enlightenment. So Dogen's defining delusion and enlightenment for us. He's telling us what they are. And they're not what we think they are. And if you read the words carefully, you'll see that they depend on the relationship between the self and all things. What is delusion and what is enlightenment depends on the relationship between the self, this self, and all things. To carry the self forward and illuminate myriad things is delusion. So to me, carrying the self forward has the connotation of striving, of pushing towards an agenda. Even if that agenda is awakening, we're pushing towards an agenda. And Okamura Roshi says, when we actively try to move toward things, measuring, evaluating, relating with them based on our own limited ideas, we act in delusion. Because Buddha Dharma encompasses all of reality. And when we experience reality from the perspective of our own small, grasping, particular self, whenever our practice is goal-oriented, when we're acting under the mistaken belief system of our ego, we act in delusion. Norman Fisher says this is looking for the Dharma outside of our own mind. To think the Dharma is somewhere else and that you are incomplete, that you have to do something, that you have to be better, that you have to do more is delusion. The next line is that the myriad dharmas come forth and illuminate the self is enlightenment. Yasutani Roshi says, when the deluded dream of ego breaks up, you become aware that all existence is the self. So actually Norman Fisher says that when the word self is used in both sentences, It doesn't mean my ego or my sense of self. It means the self of the myriad dharmas. But this is seeing with the enlightened eye. From the perspective of a Buddha, we are always manifesting true reality, even when we manifest delusion. It's a very profound teaching. Even when I'm asleep, my heart is beating, I continue to breathe. But I'm not directing those things, I'm not making them happen. True reality continues, even when I'm asleep. So we're always manifesting true reality. When we sit on the cushion and thoughts arise, what's the purpose of the mind? To secrete thoughts. Some of the thoughts that arise are deluded thoughts. We're always manifesting true reality. But in our practice, we strive to live out true reality in accord with all beings. To really be our life without trying to externalize ourselves as someone who needs improvement, without trying to fix ourselves or to fix the world or get better to get enlightened. We just need to be life, wholeheartedly, sincerely. To awaken to reality, we must see ourselves both as finite, limited beings and as a reflection of the whole universe. So this goes on for many, many pages. I'm not sure exactly where to stop. I'll read the next few lines and cover them briefly, and then we'll just come to a conclusion. Those who have great realization of delusion are Buddhas. Those who are greatly deluded about realization are sentient beings. This one is also kind of mind-blowing to me. Those who have great realization of delusion are Buddhas. So we might think that Dogen's saying there are two types of beings. There are Buddhas over here and deluded sentient beings over here. But as I said, the Buddha said, all sentient beings, without exception, have Buddha nature. So our practice is to sit down and breathe and let whatever comes up, come up. And to be present with all of it. We might find it really peaceful. We might find it disturbing to discover how chaotic and random our thoughts actually are. We see all of our attachments, our patterns, our hurt and our anger. Those who have great realization of delusion are Buddhas. When you're deluded, be deluded. See your confusion. Let it in. This is manifesting Buddha. When we sit down in the midst of our delusion and practice with it, we're free. And those who are greatly deluded about realization are sentient beings. We have this idea about what realization is, about what enlightenment is, and we aspire to this thing that is outside of ourselves. And when we chase this idea that's outside of ourselves, it's some idea of enlightenment, a sentient being is manifest. Further, there are those who continue realizing beyond realization and those who are in delusion beyond delusion, throughout delusion. Those are those who continue realizing beyond realization and those who are in delusion throughout delusion. And Okamura, actually it's Uchiyama Roshi on this one that I wrote a comment. He says, and I love this, I really love this, because I was struggling actually as I read it. I thought I understood realizing beyond realization, and I was struggling with delusion throughout delusion. And Uchiyama Roshi says, since all of us often enter into delusion, I don't think I have to explain much about delusion throughout delusion. He didn't even think it was worth a comment. We should think about those who attain realization beyond realization. There is no end to this practice. There's no end to it. When our life is practicing the Buddha way, there will be realization beyond realization. And there will be delusion throughout delusion. Delusion and enlightenment, life cannot exist without both. And I'll end here. When Buddhas are truly Buddhas, they do not necessarily notice that they are Buddhas. However, they are actualized Buddhas who go on actualizing Buddha. Most of what happens in our life is unknown to us. Think about it. We go around kind of trying to optimize this little small self that we think we are, trying to protect it, trying to make its life a little more comfortable. And the whole universe is going on around us, and we're part of it. So our conscious life of the self, our perceptions and thoughts, they're just a small part of our lives. And yet we fully identify with that small part. So the reality of life means our whole life, which means the part that we identify with, but also includes the part that we can't know or perceive or be conscious of. So practice. The message of all of Dogen's teaching, and certainly of Genjōkōan, is what he calls practice realization. And it's not used actually until this particular expression, this particular hyphenated word, practice realization, is not even used in the Genjōkōan until section 9. But the entirety of Genjōkōan and the entirety of Dogen's teaching is that we don't practice to realize ourselves. We practice as an expression of our realization. So practice on the cushion in your life, wholeheartedly, and follow this Buddha way. We'll follow the Buddha way together. Thank you.